I want to do this as quickly as possible, as an invitation to read the report that we're going to release this Friday in Good News in the Garden State. So I want to thank everybody who responded to the My Way of Love inventory in October and November, and also everybody who encouraged other folks to participate in this. We had just under 800 respondents from across the diocese. All of our data was gathered up together and analyzed in comparison to Renewal Works' database of over 2,000 churches and 43,000 participants from congregations of all denominations in the U.S. And that includes a separate analysis comparing us to folks in over 350 Episcopal churches. That's about 23,000 respondents. So compared to respondents from other Episcopal churches, respondents in the Diocese of New Jersey in this inventory show a stronger commitment to discipleship and strong engagement with the practices of our faith. And when we compare ourselves against respondents in a broad cross-section of denominations that have varying cultures of discipleship, we see that we're not as strong in the deepest categories of discipleship as measured by the Renewal Works and My Way of Love inventories, so that we have room to grow when we want to compare ourselves to Christians of many denominations, and we look very strong compared to Christians in the Episcopal Church at the moment. So, couple things, highlights that you'll see in the narrative report that we're releasing this weekend. The strength and the deeper phases of discipleship that I mentioned, something that comes out fairly clearly in the ways we responded to spiritual practice and values questions is that we're a diocese of doers. We're particularly strong in practicing our faith through ministries of service and sharing. We are a group of people who rely on the core practices of our worship and Episcopal identity, the Book of Common Prayer, the Eucharist, to really support our discipleship. And that we have opportunities to build on that commitment to service ministry through our faith, and the ways we use Scripture, Book of Common Prayer, Eucharist to support our faith, to strengthen our explicit commitment to and trust in the core teachings of our faith. Because we, when we look at our responses in comparison to the broad group of other respondents, we show ourselves as less committed than other folks in our spiritual stages to those core beliefs in God as Trinity and the personal impact of Jesus in our life. So there's room to use where we're strong in order to grow in that confidence in expressing our faith and in the core truths. There are a lot of other opportunities, no surprise, to grow and deepen discipleship. We've been working on that in this diocese for years now. And so there are folks working on these opportunities already, and there's some detail in the reports that can help guide us in that. I have not been watching the chat, but I see it's been active. Is there anything I need to answer?
Mostly on the election stuff.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
I want to share with you just a quick overview of how Renewal Works helps us understand a snapshot of ourselves in our discipleship. Renewal Works works with an understanding of a spiritual continuum, in which one end of the continuum is not really knowing much about faith, but maybe being curious about Jesus and God and what it could all mean. That's the explore end of the spectrum that you see on your screen. And those can be folks who've been in the church for many years because they like the community, but really are just getting curious about Jesus and how faith can really impact our daily lives. Or they can be folks who are brand new to the conversation. The far end of the spectrum of the continuum is a life that is centered in Jesus. These are folks who might say that we've put Jesus in the driver's seat of our life and we are the passenger. We are completely committed to Jesus as the highest priority and strongest relationship in our lives. Those can be people who have recently joined the church or people who've been in the pews for 70 years. In between, and folks, this is not a absolute one thing to the next progression. This is something where folks can move around on this continuum and spectrum in different parts of their spiritual lives. But moving deeper gets you from that curiosity and exploring to a place that Renewal Works calls growing, a place where you really know that you want to be engaged in this faith. You want to be in relationship with Jesus. You know that you want this to be important in your life. And you're developing the practices. You're figuring out what it means. You have some questions. You're not absolutely convinced that this is the center of your life. The deepening stage are folks who have moved to the part of discipleship where they know they want Jesus to be the most central relationship in their lives. They're really active in the practices that help Christ to guide us. And we rely on that relationship, but maybe haven't put Jesus in the driver's seat. We'll use Jesus to navigate, but not put Jesus in the driver's seat. And you'll see the percentages of respondents in New Jersey, in the Diocese of New Jersey, who fall into each of those categories. You'll see that there are 8% of respondents who were in that curious, exploring stage. The largest group of us, at 45%, fall into that stage of growing in our discipleship. A strong group of 36% fall into that category of deeply relying on Jesus in our daily lives. And a strong for Episcopalians, 11%, really testify that they are centered and that Jesus is the guiding force and strongest relationship in their lives. Compared to, so you've got just over half of us in the two growing and exploratory stages, which compares to other Episcopal churches, which have about 70% of Episcopalians fall into those exploring and growing stages. We look very strong when we compare ourselves with the 47% of us in the deeper and centered stages, where about 29% of other Episcopalians report themselves to be in those two stages. When you compare us across other churches in many denominations with different cultures around discipleship and spiritual formation, it's just under half of folks, about 47% in the first two stages, and just over half with a solid quarter in that final centered state, reporting themselves in that final centered stage. So that shows us both the real strength of our diocese in discipleship. We really, within groups and individuals in the Episcopal culture, we look very strong in our growth and discipleship, and we show that there's opportunity for us to grow when we look at ourselves as representatives of Christians across all faith denominations. There's more about this in the report that's coming out this weekend. But just to think a little bit about now that we have some of this information, what's next? A lot of the strength that we see, the Discerning Our Common Call Committee attributes to the work that we've been doing over the last 5 or 6 years, particularly, and some of this work well before that. But since we've discerned our common call as that focus on discipleship, we've really worked on that not only in the Way of St. Paul and formation work, but in diocesan business, in council meetings, finance meetings, throughout our governance, as well as in our worship. And we can continue to do that in the coming years to grow stronger. We can use some of the insights from this inventory to help us focus on specific places. The Lifelong Christian Formation Committee is also preparing a series of resources that can match to these stages of spiritual life and continuum, so that congregations and individuals can tap into resources that really can help move from the stage we're in now to the deeper stage that we want to be in next. And we might consider doing an inventory like this in a few years to see what has changed as we continue to grow in our common focus. Thanks.